Guys, I'm seriously worried about our reserves at Fort Knox. They haven't been audited since the early 50s, and apparently Ron Paul's pretty worried too.
Is there gold in Fort Knox, or are the vaults simply empty?
No, we don't know, and there's a very good chance it's not there or that it's been pledged. I tried hard to get an audit of the Fed as well as the gold, and when I was on the Gold Commission in the early 1980s, we had 17 members of the board and 15 voted against auditing the gold. I suspect the gold is not there. The Germans decided we're just supposed to hold gold for foreign governments. The Germans asked for their gold and they didn't get it. Oh, in 5 or 7 years we might have it for you.
Now, after they've been finding all this fraud throughout our government, Trump and the Department of Government Efficiency have some serious questions as to what's left in Fort Knox themselves.
Elon Musk and DOGE setting their sights on the country's largest gold reserve, Fort Knox in Kentucky, as its own senator reveals that $425 billion of a gold supply doesn't even get a yearly review. So, Senator, I didn't know it was that much money there, and I was even more surprised that there's been no review.
Yeah, me too. I mean, let me know what you guys think, but in my mind, this would be a yearly auditing process. There'd be a website dedicated to it, like fortknox.gov. This is what we have in the reserves. Maybe they're not all in the Fort Knox location, but these are the United States reserves. I mean, a country's reserves not being clearly audited? I mean, that just blows my mind. How is that possible? Banks need a clear audit of their reserves.
But even if you walk into Fort Knox and see the gold, what does that prove? It might be pledged, it might be loaned out. So, no, once again, you cannot believe the government on what they tell you about the gold.
Apparently, the Paul family has spent 2 generations trying to get a handle on this Fort Knox issue.
Well, you know, I've been trying to go down and see the gold and make sure it's all there for about 10 years. During the first Trump administration, I got permission. You have to get permission all the way up to the Secretary of Treasury. And then the Secretary of Treasury said, well, I want to go down there too. And then he said, I want to go down there when the eclipse is coming through Kentucky too, so I can see the eclipse and the gold at the same time. But they came when I wasn't there. So I tried for 10 years. I set up the appointment. And then because they wanted to see the eclipse, they changed the appointment. I didn't get to go down.
Are you guys as sketched out by that story as I am?
But the Secretary of Treasury and the senior senator from Kentucky did go down and attest that they believe they saw the gold down there.
They believe they saw the gold down there.
Former Treasury Secretary Steve Mnuchin apparently holding a gold bar, standing in front of a bunch of gold bars, although I don't know why the only photos they had were super grainy and in black and white. You can't even tell if those bars behind him are gold or silver or perhaps just a painted wall.
This was 2017. What kind of camera is that? Am I out of my mind? What kind of camera is that? Why are we looking at a photo, black and white, riddled with film grain, looked like video footage taken from the 40s?
Now, he was accompanied by a member of the Senate, Mitch McConnell, who obviously is from Kentucky.
So you mean to tell me that Rand Paul set up the appointment, spent 10 years trying to go. Then at the last second, the Treasury Secretary jumps in, is going to go with Rand Paul, and then they flip the dates when Rand Paul can't go, and at the last second, Mitch McConnell takes Rand Paul's place. Yeah, now I'm fully sketched out.
All of these photos are from inside just one of the small vaults in Fort Knox. They didn't go into any of the other vaults while they were there.
One of the vaults, oh yeah, no, that's good enough for me, right? Holding one of the bars, right? I mean, they didn't even cut it open. Cut it open. See if it's plated or something.
After the visit, Steve Mnuchin posted on Twitter, thanks to U.S. Mint staff for hosting at Fort Knox, United States Bullion Depository, first U.S. Treasury Secretary to visit since John Snyder in 1948. Glad gold is safe.
Glad gold is safe. Not glad the gold is safe. This is so sketchy to me right now.
Here is a photo from the second most recent visit to Fort Knox. This was taken in 1974. It is U.S. Mint Director Mary Brooks.
So they do have a color camera over there. They had it all the way back in. I'm so confused right now. But here's the crazier part. Did you guys know that the gold that is either there or not there in Fort Knox was actually probably illegally taken from citizens in the first place?
The origin of America's gold reserves dates back to 1933, when President Franklin Delano Roosevelt outlawed the private ownership of gold by U.S. citizens in an effort to jumpstart the economy during the Great Depression.
A mandatory forced buyout. I'm sure it was for the good of the people.
In 1933, America nationalized its gold. In essence, it stole it from the American people.
That just doesn't even make any sense. Gold prices had been sitting around $20 for over 100 years at that point. What benefit would it have for the federal government to confiscate all the gold and hand people paper notes?
Under the watchful eye of federal marshals, citizens were required to turn in their gold coins, bullion, and even gold paper certificates at the then current exchange rate of $20.67 per troy ounce.
How on earth was that legal?
Almost overnight, U.S. gold reserves swelled to 5,000 tons, melted into 368,000 uniform bars, each weighing 27.5 pounds.
I'm just not seeing how any of this was either legal or morally justifiable. To take people's money at a set, sure, they were giving them the paper monetary value, but don't people have the right as to whether they hold precious metals or value in the form of legal tender? I mean, this is supposed to be a free country.
1 year later, Roosevelt raised the new fixed price for U.S. gold to $35 an ounce.
You've got to be f***ing kidding me. Yeah, dude, we need DOGE all up in there. We need DOGE in the IRS. We need DOGE in the Federal Reserve. Is this a joke?
And building on that, Dr. Paul, you've long pushed not just to audit the Fed, but America's gold reserves. The big question everyone wants to know, do you think the United States still has all its gold?
But the truth is that I don't know. I think the gold is there. Ownership is a question because there's a lot of borrowing and gimmickry that goes on. And that's why the audit is so important.
If they start screaming, DOGE in Fort Knox, they're stealing all the gold, you know it's because the gold was already stolen decades ago, and they're going to be looking for somebody to blame.
I think the biggest issue for the Fed is what they do in international finance. That seems to be the information that they cling to most tightly. I think there's more bailouts than people realize. If you were on a gold standard, you couldn't have all that mischief. You couldn't build the big bubbles, and you couldn't get away with trying to patch over the bubbles by building another bubble.
Thank God we finally got some accountability in government. J.D. Vance taught the EU a lesson on free speech. Check it out.